chair, so we can spend hours in a hard end chair.
Pull up. We charge cheap, $25 an hour.
That's nothing. What's your hourly rate?
And on that note, we're live.
Between 200 and 250.
We're live.
Alright. Today's Thursday, January 19th, and we're gonna call the Charter Review Committee meeting to order. A quick roll call. I'm here, Councilmember Carson, Councilmember Barshu.
Hello.
Anybody see any corrections or additions or anything to the minutes?
No.
See, we do this very quick. Alright, old business. So as we know, we did our first one, sent it to the attorney. Attorney is now here to tell us everything we did wrong
Let's hear it.
as we go through this.
The only thing that I was concerned about, and again, frankly, Greg brought it to my attention, was that before as you saw in front of me, as I sent to you, there's a comprehensive plan, an emergency management plan, and we just want to make sure that the two weren't inconsistent. So we don't have a fight between the charter and then during some emergency saying, well, that's not what the comprehensive plan says. And at the time the comprehensive plan was put together, there was no city administrator. But as I worked my way through everything.
So David, right now, you're honing in on C15 subsection 9? Because we're talking about the emergency.
Yeah, in the charter, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with the easy stuff. Were you good with the verbiage that we changed? Because that's the subsection that we spent a little time on. Right, Katie, we had scratched out mayor and put in city administrator, and then we went with agency, because I think that was your suggestion for after the word state for officials. I think that was the only two changes that we had on subsection
I
9.
don't have the definition.
Sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, did I see this markup, but it said emergency management plan
Yes.
was inserted?
Yeah, everything was.
No, I think that's just my note to like make sure that we.
Oh, I see, okay.
So the proposed language changes were
Got
sent by
it,
email.
okay, yeah, because it's a slightly different one, so.
Right, the clerks sent to.
Yeah, like I said, I just wanna make sure that we weren't doing A and B, and it's important that, and I don't know exactly how to do it, because we start setting things up like emergency management plan, and nobody checks to see whether the charter is different. So, I mean, we're doing this and we're doing our job, and you guys are.
But isn't this a standalone document though? The emergency management plan is something that is off over here by itself as a standalone. I
It is.
understand what you're saying, but this,
So when
this can be revised at any time though.
Absolutely, and but none of this, when this was not consistent with this. And again, I think that it could be corrected by adding things, by differentiating between mayor and city administrator, because again, this talks, we didn't have a city administrator when the emergency plan was being put together.
Right, and we're going through this now anyway.
Yeah.
So this is good timing to be doing both of these at the
Exactly,
same time.
exactly. The only
This
thing.
is under the microscope.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, absolutely, we should do this, and how we end up, again, I don't have any problem either way, as long as they're consistent. The only thing I'm telling you is that as you perhaps will have longer corporate memory when I'm gone, and I won't be here. But to be sensitive to the fact that when you start doing this stuff, someone should say, maybe we ought to check with the charter and make sure it's the same. And before you start changing the emergency plan, take a look at the charter and say, and maybe we should put in there consistent with the city. I mean, so that's all. And I'm just trying to fix a potential problem that I see right now,
Mhm.
and then maybe leave some sort of a kernel somewhere.
So could you put that on page 2 of the emergency management plan in conclusion, to your point, that it ties the two documents together?
Emergency management plan. I have
That was in your packet.
I know, that's one. Remember the fact that, where are you?
I'm on page 2, under subsection conclusion. Would that be a good spot for you to put in?
Are you the charter now?
I'm in the emergency management plan, page 2.
I have to go to the charter of aging commission, I'm sorry, I gotta go now.
So yeah, I'm on emergency management plan, page 2, subsection conclusion. And you can tie the two documents together. I don't know if that's the spot that you wanna do it, but.
Sure.
Well, and maybe it's our responsibility to make a list as we go along. Like you said, the charter's under the microscope, so maybe rather than pulling in all these documents right now and getting ourselves tied in knots, maybe we just make a list, like, of the changes, the potential documents that they might have an impact on, and then treat it more like a ripple. So like, figure out where we want the charter to be, and then say, along the way, we identified that it might impact A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Mm-hmm.
and then we take a look at those separately, once we have the charter. Cause, you know, the charter is like the founding document, so we should, in my opinion, we should start there.
Right. I also have a question for David is, again, when we had our first meeting, you said depending on how many changes we make,
Mhm.
so depending on the changes that we have looked at right now, proposals, the proposals, are we still within the scope of this legislature, or are we moving closer towards a referendum?
Here's the rule. It goes like this.
Okay.
Anytime you address one issue in the charter, that can be done as a local law, and you can change the charter to that, in relation to that one issue. If you say, we're doing this part of the charter, and then we're doing this part of the charter, and we're doing this part of the charter, and we're adding them all together and doing them all at once. Once you do that, then you're doing a modification to the charter, and you need to go to a referendum, and you need to do everything. You need to have a referendum. So again, depending on where you wanna go and how comprehensive you wanna be, you can do them one at a time, and do them one at a time, and pass them each as a modification to the charter, and pass them each as a local law, then you can address them as they come up. If you start being, no pun intended, comprehensive, then you're making a comprehensive change, and you're bound to do the vote and the hearings and all
And
that.
there's no time period between those two pieces of legislation. Okay.
So right now, we're just addressing mayor. So if we just make changes to mayor.
If that's the way you do it,
Okay.
and you say, here, we're looking at 3 potential changes to the charter. Here's one, and we wanna change that. And here's the second one, and we wanna change that. Here's a third one, we wanna change that. Again, it starts, it's cumulative at 2, if they don't have anything to do with each other.
Right.
If you do one thing in the charter and it has a ripple effect,
Then it's still considered one.
then it's still considered one.
Okay, so along those lines, you want to talk about that then?
What's that?
Well, the citizen
Citizen
advisory.
advisory, cause that's underneath the mayor, that's all considered one, correct?
I don't know what you're saying.
So like, we went through the mayor, which is C15,
Right.
and then we got down to where it says citizens advisory boards and other ad hoc groups. I'm taking it that's part of underneath the mayor.
Yes.
That would be considered
It's
one
considered
change.
one.
I would consider that, whether, somebody sued us and said that it
Okay,
didn't, but my position is all you're doing is making changes to the mayor,
right,
the provision of C15, so it's considered one.
okay. So maybe because your copy's not in front of you, if you go to that subsection, citizen
Your email now, I forwarded you another copy.
I
advisory,
got printed, where are you now?
I'm on page 9 of
Okay.
the charter,
I'm here.
and citizen advisory
Down
Okay.
at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
So we crossed off the word boards,
Mhm.
and then we crossed off boards and commissions, so it would read, the mayor may create and dissolve citizen advisory. We crossed off boards and
Yes,
commissions.
I see that.
Then we moved on to, and other ad hoc groups, crossed off with common council approval, all the way to the very end.
Okay. Okay.
Because I think even in the open council meeting, you were identifying there was some confusion in that language there.
Mhm.
And so this group has come up with, and crossing those off, but we added the verbiage and appoint their membership with council approval. And that was after the word ad hoc, or after the word groups under, and other ad hoc group.
Mhm.
Okay.
Again,
That's all considered one change.
yes, yes.
Okay.
That's, was the fundamentals of the changes that we gave. So. That's,
Yeah, again, from the perspective, what I'm trying to make clear is I am not trying to move you in any one direction or another with regard to the changes. I just wanna make sure that I'm clear to you as what constitutes a change and what my concerns are.
Right, so the second change would be C17. I have in my notes that the Civil Service Commission was not part of this document.
Yeah, the Civil Service Commission is a different animal because that's covered under the Civil Service Law. And is constituted under the New York State Civil Service Law and is not dependent, nor can it be overruled by the charter.
Would that be the same for the Zoning and Housing Board of Appeals?
Not really, because we have the Zoning and Housing Board of Appeals is the housing board's that whether we, do we still call it the Housing Board of Appeals?
Zoning and housing board.
It is, the title is housing, because the Housing Board of Appeals is an entity that is created by the city in conformance with federal, or with New York State statutes. New York State says a city can create a zoning and planning board, a zoning board's a planning board. Once we do, then we've created it and we're stuck with what we created.
Whereas the Civil Service Commission is, you have to have it no matter what.
Well, no, the Civil Service Commission is established by New York State, and I believe that the City of Oneonta Civil Service Commission is created by New York State. Because not every municipality has it.
But tying things in,
Mhm.
the mayor has the authority to
To name.
populate
Yep,
those boards
yep,
and commissions.
yes,
And I just
absolutely.
thought we should
Yep.
have the Civil
Yep.
Service Commission.
Well, and especially under the title current. I mean, Civil Service Commission is a current board,
Right,
so,
so maybe we should have it then?
yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's an accurate statement that it's a current board and commission.
Right, and since this language or the reference to this section goes back to the mayor's section of C15, because they have the ability, he has the ability to populate
Yeah,
and remove,
yeah.
would that still be considered one piece of legislation?
I might wanna take a look at that, and the reason is for example, the library board isn't here. And,
and I don't think the housing commission's on there. I think that needs to be added on.
no, housing commission's there.
Is it?
Yeah, next to last line, I'm sorry, I stuck this,
That's okay. I can,
I have to apologize. I'm back to my blue one because
yeah,
my other
the
one.
housing commission's here.
yeah, I remember we
Okay.
made that change
But
because we
the-
added like 3 boards and commissions.
But the library board is not, because again, the library board is populated by the mayor,
Oh, right, yeah.
but has absolutely nothing to do city, you know what I'm saying? Let me check on the Civil Service Commission. As to, but, I mean, it is a board.
Right, it's a board that's populated.
By the mayor.
The candidates are selected by the mayor, but the council is approving of those candidates,
Yeah.
so since it's business that comes before the council, it would seem we would want that, right?
Yeah,
We would want that
I mean-
included in this document.
It, yeah, frankly, I don't know that it makes any difference. I don't know whether the term of office, for example, I mean, the term of office for the library is set by the library, by the specific provisions of the library board. CSEA, may be set again by state statute, I don't know off the top of my head. But this says, except as otherwise provided by the charter or other applicable law, where it says the term of office is 3 years. So again, if it's overridden by the state or by the library board, then it's overridden anyway. I mean, in some senses, this provision here is, is almost informational.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because in a sense, no matter what you say about the library board, whether it's there or not, it is what it is and it's not gonna change. And again, I'm not sure about the Civil Service Commission.
And just so you know, Len, we're C-17 and stuff, that's on our topic for tonight on our new business, not old.
That's what we're talking about right now.
So, just so you know.
Yeah,
Oh.
now,
You jumped the ball.
No, it says right here, old business, C-17. Because we had talked about C-17 last time, which
Yeah,
was old
Right,
business.
we were picking up at C-17 and moving forward,
Oh.
It's a civil service
which is fine, I just,
created
is
by
fine, I
state
just-
statute.
cause we never got the terms
We never
of
talked,
office.
right, we didn't talk about terms of office.
And that's where we're gonna, that's
Right,
where we're
that's the
gonna
new
pick up.
business.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, 'cause he just talked about terms. I was just trying to get.
Okay. There's that pesky way going where we just changed some stuff in 15 and it's coming to 17, but now we're back to wanting to change more in 17 before we gotta make sure that we do. I would just do them as like, we did 15, we know we got the ripple effect, and some of the stuff in 17. Send 17 up as its own, just to keep them in a block.
Yeah, cause we wanna talk about terms.
Terms.
And, yeah, like potentially being able to have people start them off, sort of things like that. Yeah,
That's a different topic.
yeah. Okay, so that's one thing then, and we're putting a pin in that, the mayor thing.
Yep.
So,
I
so
feel
you're saying just go with C-15 as one piece of legislation?
one piece of legislation and send it. And then we're coming back. We understand that some of it in 17, our attorney's gotta look at because there's some stuff that's brought up.
I mean, obviously, you're gonna get some blowback from the mayor regarding the ad hoc committees, cause he wants to be able to appoint without council approval, so, but that was his thing to begin with, so, you can deal with that.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because one of the things that was brought up between our last meeting and now to me that has been kind of bouncing around in my brain is that like so much of what we're regulating there is the mayor's action when it comes to this type of thing. So the example that was brought up to me is the skateboard group that I won't use the word task force, but group that is like trying to determine what repairs can be made to the skate park, the Neola Park. That group was not created by the mayor. He has knowledge of it, but he didn't go out and say like, I wanna create community members, again, that like he met with them one time or whatever, but they're kind of taking it on their own. So I feel like there's a weird gray area there where if something isn't, directly sanctioned by the mayor, it can still be kind of happening, To your point, there's sort of a way around it. Not that anyone is doing that intentionally, but I just wanted to point that out, that,
I think any citizens group can form their own group if they wanna do, because,
yeah,
And then make
They
a
have
proposal
nothing.
to the council
yeah.
right.
as to what it is that they wanna do or how they're gonna do it.
But when the
There is another
mayor,
point,
but the
which
difference is when the mayor approaches and wants to do an ad hoc committee, he's doing it more in an official capacity of the city, acting as the city. And that's where
Yeah.
we come in and saying, well, we just wanna know what's going on. If you're gonna report people to the board, we should have knowledge of that. And-
Sure.
Well, no, you don't wanna have knowledge of it, you wanna have veto over it.
Right, we wanna be able to have the power to say yes or no. Because it may be something, we don't agree with.
Well, and maybe that's the difference, is what happens with whatever that task force, whether it's community-based or city, does. Like a community-based thing would have to go to a commission, for discussion and approval as an agenda item, just like anything else. Where, something that is commissioned on behalf of the city in an official capacity, kind of already has, I guess, maybe that's where we delineate, is that they sort of start a step ahead, right? Because we're saying, we sort of approve this message,
Well, the mayor certainly is.
right?
Right.
If he appoints an ad hoc committee, there's a committee, isn't it appointed by the mayor, and then, so you have a mayor appointed committee who's addressing A, B, C, or D. I mean, they obviously can't get any funds, or they can't sign any commitments or anything, but they can walk around saying, we're the president, we're the mayor's commission on,
Mm-hmm.
candy in downtown Onondaga.
Yeah. I mean, the funding piece is really my hang up with the creation of ad hocs and things. It's just that saying that, for example, we're going to build a stage, which is going to take money that the council hasn't voted on necessarily yet. I mean, we have now, but at the time, that felt a little cart before the horse to me. And it's tricky. I feel like cart before the horse is kind of,
That's the city way, it always has
it's the
been.
city way.
Yeah,
You
but
kinda have to do it, 'cause
you
you
create,
need the
you could create a
information.
constituency that comes in front of the council and says, here's something good, why aren't you gonna do something good? And,
Right.
and they always go, well, you could just vote on it and then we'll have the money. So that's, I mean, that is the mechanism by which public sentiment is moved in order to move the common council to spend the public money for a particular desire of a relatively small but vocal group of people.
Yeah, I kinda look at it this way, Katie, if an ad hoc committee, if they went out and, I'm not saying that they would do this, but they started the fundraising for this project,
Mhm.
has a little bit
The
more.
first Jimmy would shoot them, so you don't have to worry about that.
Right.
It would be all bad.
I know that, but I'm just saying, I think that'd be in an official capacity versus if a group of residents got together and started a GoFundMe because they wanted to put a bridge across Newall's Pond.
Mhm.
That would be on them, and any lawsuits or anything would go to them if they didn't disperse the money the right way or keep it up or whatever, if they disbanded and somebody just spent the money, well, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I kinda look at it. I think more of the ad hocs is it's more of official capacity for the city than if because the mayor has helped set that up as an official
Right.
versus just a group of residents getting together on their own.
Right. Now, Mark raised a good point to me, which I want to bring forward with regard to our changes to C15, and it has to do with the approval of the membership. I'm not advocating for this position, but I thought that it was worth mentioning that we consider it, is that, well, no, I don't want to start there. Basically, his perspective, and I don't want to misrepresent this, Mark, if you're watching, so, is you know, that people will sort of come and go from committees, rather than boards and commissions, where it's like commitment, I'm gonna be there for 3 years. And ad hoc is sort of more fluid group. And so the concern that he expressed to me, that I'm just voicing here, is that, you know, if we are expecting to approve every member of an ad hoc as they need to be replaced, that could really slow down the process of replacing people on those committees.
Same thing that happens with boards and commissions, tough. It's,
Yeah,
And I think that's the mayor's concern as well. That he wants to be able to do things quickly, and if something doesn't work out, he wants to be able to replace them. If somebody else is interested, then he's gonna call him, he can say, sure, you're on the group and appoint it, you know. I mean, if, I'm thinking out loud here, so don't, but you might be able, and again, this would be essentially with negotiation with the mayor, is say that any ad hoc appointment needs to be provided to the council within 10 days of appointment or something like that, and then if the council had a veto power, you'd probably never use it, because again, nobody likes to kick somebody off a committee, an ad hoc committee, if they're willing to come on it. But if you could require some reporting from the mayor for an ad hoc committee, that may be one way that the council could be kept in the loop, without the mayor thinking he's hogtied to go through and say, and at some council meeting have somebody say, well, who's this person? You know, I don't know anything about this person, and well, maybe we gotta put this over for 2 weeks or 3 weeks in order to get somebody else on there. I mean, right now, as you all know, what we have is lots and lots of empty spots.
Yeah, we have 13 right now.
Yeah, on boards and commissions. And so making it hard to get people in the public to serve, I think is, again,
But those
I say about
13
legislative-
openings aren't stymied by the council, Dave.
not,
that's true.
fair enough. But maybe by the process.
well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna counter that as we meet, unless there's a, like, circumstance that happened Tuesday where people are sick and stuff. We pretty regularly meet every 2 weeks, except for holidays that push us out a little more, so I
I
don't,
look forward to 5-week months, frankly, if we admit it, but when that Tuesday comes on the 30th or the 31st, I don't cry.
I don't see that would stifle any kind of committee, any.
Again, don't misunderstand,
I know where you're coming from, and I
Yeah.
understand that, but that's just my point of view is sometimes haste makes waste, and it actually causes more issues.
legislators are jealous of their powers. That's why you're elected.
Well, it's interesting, I mean, because I didn't actually know until you suggested it that was an option. You know, and I think for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else, really not the creation of the group, because I do think that if you are saying in an official capacity, like the city has interest in this topic and solving for this problem, whatever it is, that it should come through consensus of the council. With regard to the membership, for me, it's primarily about the knowledge of who's on these committees and doing this work. I mean, we think about, we have the you know, the appointments, boards and commissions, how infrequently someone is pulled from that, and it's a big deal whether we appoint them or not. It's
What do you mean pull?
like, so for example, there was concern over an appointment to the housing commission, right?
Okay.
So there was discussion on that, but for the most part, our question is, are they a city resident?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, we're like, cool. You know, and there isn't a lot of discussion of their credentials or anything like that. So, you know, for me, again, just speaking from my perspective, if there were some required reporting structure with regard to ad hoc committees, I would be opposed to not approving every single appointment. Which, you know, to David's point, might be a good middle ground. I'm not saying we have to go that way. I'm just saying, I didn't realize that that was an option, and that doesn't seem
Well,
like
the
I have
answer is
that
anything's
option.
an option, it just depends on how broadly, and again, whether you go through all this and we prepare the local law, and the mayor voices his objection, and then he vetoes it, because of that provision, then you have to get a 3/4 vote of the council in order to override his veto. Sometimes, and again, trust me, I'm not the mayor's stalking horse. We have not discussed it, but I know that was how we kind of got this place to begin with. Maybe some discussions could be had with the mayor. But again, the legislature's job is to legislate, and you can do whatever you want. I just,
Right,
Perhaps
so
so.
by leaving in the appointment and appoint their membership with council approval, it gives the legislature an opportunity to shut down the ad hoc committee.
by
Because
not,
ultimately,
essentially
this
by
is
not
supposed to be
approving.
an issue that is getting taken care of, that you're rounding up concerned citizens to attack this issue. And so it's not something that is transient, it's something that's been with us for a while, it's been identified as an issue, it needs to be addressed. So it seems as though that if, to take that much time and concern for an ad hoc, you would wanna get the right people on that committee.
Sure.
And allow the 8 council members representing the citizens to have a little voice on that. And so,
Again,
I don't think that this is really taking anything away from the mayor other than being part of this body.
again, that's,
I really think it's making sure that the mayor and the council are working
Together.
as cohesive as possible by doing it this way. And I think if you take a little bit of
the mayor has
teeth
no
out of
authority to
it.
change the charter, you do.
So. Okay.
I'm good with leaving it.
I'm good with it.
The way that we have it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Because I don't think we're stymieing the process at all. I don't think this council has, but maybe one time, and that was with a different mayor, to your point, said no to somebody, and then I think we revisited a month later. So,
Yeah. Yeah, how did that get through again?
the guy on your left,
Uh-huh.
I was sleeping.
Anyway,
I had to pick on you, Dave, I'm sorry. So,
So before you leave though, I just wanna be firm on this again. So if we're gonna do this C15, that's a good piece, send it forward. We'll work on C17, that's a good piece, send it forward.
If that's the way that you prefer to have it done.
yeah, that's the way I prefer to do it, because I think it'd be easier for us to go through and do it that way.
And I think it'd be easier for the other council members to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And again, frankly, that's what we, for the, I'm way too old. As I may have told you before, until like 1988, 1989, no modifications at all could be made in the charter without legislative action and referendum, nothing. So it was very often ignored. Then once the legislature said that it could be, that municipalities could change their charter by local law as long as it was one issue at a time, for literally 20 years, 25 years, when we had an issue that we kind of worked our way through the charter and made changes on the topics in order to address those things and address them one at a time. And then finally it began to get so top heavy that the powers that be said, listen, this thing's a patchwork quilt, we want to do it all over again. And we said, great, but when you do it all over again, remember there are gonna be issues that are gonna have to be addressed 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the line when you find things that need to be addressed. One thing, that has bothered me from day zero when they changed it, is the idea of having a city administrator was so that every frickin' contract didn't have to be signed by the mayor. That every single approval for the expenditure of X, Y, and Z had to be drafted and put together and brought in front of the council for the pedestrian things that are essentially handled by warrants, I mean, the type of things that are handled by the warrants. And we've gone around and around, but as of this moment, we're still where we were before the charter revision that was done, however many years ago it was done, which requires, you know, Greg will say, can I sign this? And I'll say, is it a contract with the city? And the answer is yes, it's a contract with the city. Therefore, the answer is no, because contracts with the city have to be approved by the common council and signed by the city minister, and signed by the mayor. And how we slice or dice that or create it, on behalf of me, that's something that I would like to see this committee or this commission to address. And we've talked about things like dollar amounts or contracts that haven't changed except for money or things of that kind. And it's not easy to do, but somewhere it'd be nice to have the authority for Greg to sign stuff so that every single document doesn't have to be drafted and put through finance committee and then put on the agenda for the mayor, for authorization of the mayor. So obviously things like bonds, you know, $9 million bonds, sure. Real estate transactions, absolutely. But, you know, a $10,000 software renewal thing, it seems crazy to have to go through the finance committee to go to recommendation to authorization to the mayor to sign, that sort of thing. Whether you do it by dollar amount or by type of contract or something like that, I think that is something that if, and maybe Greg, who has now lived in this position long enough to be frustrated on multiple occasions by this, can tell you what he thinks would be a reasonable gatekeeping way so that he doesn't run amok, you know, but at the same time avoids nickel and dime stuff that's over and over and over again that comes in front of the finance committee, that comes in front of, and we've got a deadline to renew. Well, we can't do it because it's 3 weeks till next common council meeting, you know? And it just seems to be inefficient administration.
Greg, have you, along those lines, have you drawn something up?
No, I'm dropping this on him. I've not discussed it with him, but we've talked about it in the past.
No, I haven't drawn something up specifically to that. I mean, I started a document, you know, a while ago now.
Good for you.
That just sort of lists what are the, you know, what's listed in the charter as far as the, you know, authorities or specific authorities of the city administrator, and what else is listed maybe in a purchasing manual or somewhere else. And then I've got some question marks, things that aren't called out anywhere, but, you know, are considerations. So I feel like at some point we could go through those. That's definitely one of them. I mean, to Dave's point, we have a purchasing manual that says, you know, the dollar amounts, this requires this kind of competition, that all has to be followed. But there could be something that costs no money, but it requires a signature by the mayor. Or it could be something that normally we'll just issue a purchase order for $2,000, but for some reason there's a signature required in this case, so now we have
It's
to
a
go
contract.
through the month-long process, or 3 weeks, month, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just inefficient. I think it wastes everyone's time. You can boil that down to wasting taxpayer money, really, when we're spending our time on things where, you know, as council and committees, I think there's bigger ideas that you guys would probably rather be spending time on. I mean, at one point, I could do it again for 2022. I think for 2021 I did. I went through every agenda item on the committees. And I can do that again. I'm going to look back at it and we can talk about this committee if you like, and just kind of look at what are the things that we really want to be spending our time on at these committees, and what are the things that every time they come up, they just pass right on through. Anyone have any questions about this? No? Okay. Move it along. Maybe that can kind of guide.
And very often staff puts together presentations in case there's any question. So the staff is spending time on presentations to bring in front of the committees for things that aren't going to be answered but need to be prepared in case there is. You know, so it has a ripple effect.
So I see this in C15, mayor, the next shall, number 3, sign on behalf of the city all contracts.
Yep.
So before we move that forward, before we move this section forward, we should probably address that.
You kind of beat me to it, 'cause I was also looking at the city administrator on number 2, his power of duties under number 2, where it says right in here, in oversight of fiscal management in coordination with the director of finance and the common council. Kinda seems redundant here, we got,
That's what I'm
He's-
saying,
you know, he's signing, but he's actually in charge of it.
which seems to begin to demonstrate that the mayor's signature is purely a procedural
Yeah,
rather than substantive, and 99% of the time, I think that's true.
right.
So if, I hate to drag us back to where we were at 6:01, but to me, that's an important thing.
Yeah, so maybe, you know,
Let's just put those two on the next agenda.
we'll just put those 2 on the next agenda of the,
So we're not done with C15.
nope, C15 staying with us, we'll be working on it again.
Well-
In the meantime, though, can you give us your list of, proving that it was restrictive, not only to your position, but to the city staff and the functioning and the, overall, flow of city government?
Yeah, I will share whatever I have and I'll think about maybe add it.
And then I guess a little bit further would be, to David's point, is it an item or is it and/or financial amount?
We have, dollar amounts already in the first.
Yeah, I think you're what, 20?
It depends. I mean, as far as purchasing, it depends on the type of purchase, if it's a public works project, or, if it's material or supply, if it's professional service, those are all spelled out. When the 20,000, I think you're reference, that's for transfers. Me transferring, authorizing transfer from one code to another within the budget, not amending the budget. I can go with $20,000 and I said report that back to council.
But that's like within budget line, right? You can't like take out of the fire to give to the police for, can you? Okay.
Yeah, but I think that's a quarterly report that you're supposed to give though, right?
Yeah. That's usually, there aren't many transfers over $20,000 throughout the year, that's not.
Because if you're doing it for 20,000, something's wrong with the budgeting process, so.
So I think those are probably just opportunities just to explain your position.
Sure.
Now that you've been sitting in it for a year and a half.
I mean, the big one that always jumps out to me is appointment of employees. The city administrator appoints employees with approval of the common council. And I think maybe there's a discussion to be had about what that means with approval of the common council. The way I look at it, I don't see why in the budget process, when we talk about approving the budget, and in that budget is listed the positions and the number of slots that are budgeted. If a position comes open during the year, do we need to have another approval to fill that position at the time? Or can that be done as long as it's within the budget and it's a title that we've approved and it's not changed?
I was gonna bring that a little bit further of, not to touch on that a little bit, was like maybe the council, we should only say yes or no to department heads without the city administrator hire with his department heads, like
Yes.
the DPW and the, maybe if it's a promotion thing, yes,
Well,
but
again,
something like that to streamline.
We had something that came to light that, we said, can we hire him last week, and we have to wait until common council approves, and then common council has to approve before it can hire somebody.
Right, I think that's a good example this week, obviously, on the
Yeah.
council meeting, so they can call a guy that night, tell him, so he can't start work tomorrow morning, like he told he could, because of our process and no other reason.
We've got this captured for, I'm sure we believe that you're in charge of the budget along with Jenny. As long as it's been a budget item, it's been approved for, then you should be able to hire and fire, because that's what it says in this charter. I think it really stymies the process by getting that process and making us know that.
Yeah.
But department heads is probably serious enough that, the council should have a conversation about it.
Yeah, would agree.
So why don't we, since we know we gotta look at C15 some more, cause of some stuff that was brought up. So for next meeting, we'll revisit C15. With the,
I think I talked myself into attending another meeting, I think.
you did, with, Oh, what were we doing on
C
that?
sixteen.
Contracts.
C fifteen and C sixteen,
Yeah, C15 was with the contracts,
which was number 3,
which is number 3, and then C16, which is the administrator,
which is number 2.
being able to sign certain contracts, possible dollar amounts or whatever.
And then terms of office, C17.
And then C17, terms of office. If we can get that far. Well, we knew this wasn't gonna be easy, we knew it was gonna be time consuming, so. So that'll be,
And should the term of office be just for boards and commissions, or should it be for elected officials?
okay. Terms of office across the board. Okay. Alright, because we know we're gonna be going into council meetings, so we can get up and move around a little bit. If anybody has any objections, let me know, but otherwise I would like to adjourn the meeting. Sound good?